Hello Zimbabwe. Today on Rights Wednesday, we focus on our rights and the Constitution of Zimbabwe. We look at what motivated the making of a new constitution and the rationale behind some of the key clauses. We also do a progress check in the implementation of the constitution. To help us with that, we interviewed Mr. Douglas Mwonzora, a former co-chairperson of COPAC, the body that was tasked with the role of leading the process of making the new constitution.
In the preamble to the constitution, you see this is the first constitution of this country with a preamble. And in that preamble, we try to show what we want to achieve as a nation through this constitution. And the vision was that Zimbabwe should be a constitutional democracy. And it must be predicated on certain principles, one of which is the sovereignty of the people, the right of the people as a collective to make decisions on issues affecting them. The third principle is the issue of devolution, where the people, the local people, it is the responsibility of the local people to determine the development priorities within their areas. And then, of course, the entrenchment of democracy, limited term, and the role of parliament as an institution, and the role of the president. Now, let me start with the role of the president. One of the roles of the president is to ensure that the constitution is defended and protected. And the role of parliament as well is to make sure that there is good governance of Zimbabwe, and that the role and that the constitution of Zimbabwe is defended and preserved. So we also look at the advancement of minority groups and marginalized groups, historically marginalized groups like the youth, the women, etc., the disabled people, etc. The Constitution provides a broad framework of governance. It does not provide the details of how you are going to do it. The details are left to legislation, to the various acts of parliament. So one of the most important things, the first thing that had to be done was to align the individual laws to the constitution, so that there is no conflict between the law and the constitution. Honorable Mangwana, who was a co-chair with me during COPAC, and myself were tasked by the Law Society to identify those laws that needed to be aligned to the constitution. We identified 600 laws that had to be aligned to the constitution, and unfortunately those laws have not been aligned to the constitution. So you have a constitution which says X and legislation which says Y, and quite often you have a lot of contradiction. For example, the contradiction between the Electoral Act and the Constitution of Zimbabwe. So it has not gone far. One of the things that we really wanted in the Constitution was for people of Zimbabwe to know the quality of the vice president. Yes, they have to know the quality of the president, and the president is given because he's a candidate. But they don't know who is going to choose as vice president. And the temptation is that presidents will go for vice presidents who are very mellow, who are even who don't pose a threat. So the quality of the vice president became a central issue. So we then put it in the constitution that there must be a running mate. In other words, the president must disclose, the presidential candidate must disclose who his deputy is going to be, so that the people, when the people elect, they elect the president also knowing who the deputy would be. And there was smooth succession. Should the president be unfair and unable to proceed, then the vice president automatically takes over. That was removed by the Second Amendment.